Hi, and welcome to 60 for 30, a budget Magic the Gathering project that looks to get you a playable 60-card deck of Magic for right around $30. Today, we're headed back to Modern for a super spicy, casual brew that I like to call Keyword Soup for the Modern Soul. This deck is not winning a Pro Tour, it's not based on a Tier 1 deck just made budget, it's a dumb, super awesome deck, so stay tuned and see if this appeals to you at all. The soul of the deck is Soulflayer and Cairn Wanderer. Both of these cards benefit from having cards in our graveyard that have a ton of keywords, the keyword soup cards. So if we have a card in our graveyard with double strike, vigilance, flying, lifelink, trample, indestructible, these cards can pick up those abilities and then they become amazing creatures. So they do work a little differently, and it's a little annoying because Soulflayer lists indestructible as an ability that it can gain, whereas Cairn Wanderer doesn't, and Cairn Wanderer lists protection as an ability that it can gain, whereas Soulflayer doesn't. So we can't have one card make them unkillable, since the overlap of the protection spells don't really work out, but they're still super scary when we get this stuff in our graveyard. So Zetalpa was just released in the latest set, gives you flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible, which if you exile that with a Soulflayer, you can have a easy turn 3 flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible creature, which will close out a lot of games. Lightning Runner gives haste, which is one of our most important keywords. It's important to note that we'll never cast the Zetalpa, but we could potentially cast Lightning Runner since we're going to be running this as a red-black deck. We don't want to cast Lightning Runner because Lightning Runner is not good, but if we were in a pinch and our opponent was at 4 life and tapped out and had just cleared our board, we could get them with Lightning Runner if we had to. But really, Lightning Runner is there for haste and also conveniently gives them double strike as well. In addition to those cards, we're going to play some cards that are just better in that you can actually play them in a deck without being embarrassing. We never want to cast those other two cards. These cards double as castable creatures that can help us survive to turn 5, which is when Cairn Wanderer can come down, but then also provide some keyword soup of their own. You throw down Vampire Nighthawk on turn 3, they attack into it, you trade with one of their creatures, and then you get a flying Death Touch lifelink creature in your graveyard that can turn on your Soulflayer and Cairn Wanderers. Vault Skirge is essentially the same deal. Early blocker, keeps you alive a little bit, and gives flying and lifelink. And then Demigod of Revenge is super spicy because not only does it give flying and haste is perhaps the most important attribute to stick on our super creatures, because we don't want to just put them down and then they get board wiped the next turn, and since this is a slower deck we need to immediately make an impact, so attacking with a haste and lifelink creature can usually save us, but you have to give them haste. We have plenty of lifelink between Nighthawk and Scourge, but the haste with the Demigod and the Lightning Runner is super important. But Demigod gives us another kind of out on turn 5. If we've filled our graveyard with Demigods of Revenge and we play one, you just get in for a ton of damage. Most likely that'll be 1 Demigod of Revenge in your graveyard, so on turn 5 you get 2 5/4 flying haste creatures, which is 10 damage out of nowhere straight to their face, plus whatever else you already have on board, which is pretty decent. But it is possible on turn 5, if you had 2 or 3 Demigods of Revenge in your graveyard, to just hit them for 15-20 damage haste flying out of nowhere, which is pretty disgusting. And so then we need a way to get these cards reliably into our graveyard, especially the ones like Zetalpa that we never ever are going to cast. So we have Faithless Looting, Cathartic Reunion, and Tormenting Voice. These are pretty simple. They get cards in our graveyard that we don't want, and they help us find the cards that we do want. That's it. That's what it comes down to. The lands, very simple. Mountain, swamps, Dragonskull Summits. I'll probably mention this again, but Dragonskull Summit for the online price of this deck is literally half of it. So if you don't want to pay for the Dragonskull Summits, then don't. I'd probably just replace them with mountains and swamps, since you need to be pretty quick on your early turns, I think. But you could put a guild gate or one of the gain lands in there as well, and you'd be fine probably, but the summit does add a little bit of speed to it. And then we have you can take this deck in a bunch of different directions. I'm not saying that this list is the only way you can play it. Gurmag Swiftwing is kind of another Vault Skirge option. You miss out on the lifelink, but you do have another haste creature, and I mentioned how important haste is. So you get this guy early as a blocker, he dies blocking their Tarmogoyf, and then you have flying, first strike, and haste in your graveyard. Fiery Temper, we have a ton of discard effects, so it's nice to come out of the sideboard. You could probably stick it main board if you wanted, but just being able to use the madness to slow them down a little bit and essentially bolt one of their creatures. If you really like this deck, I think Stormwrath Dragon is main deckable, probably instead of Lightning Runner, because they cost the same, but it's just a much better creature, and it also offers protection from white, which is relevant for one very important reason: Path to Exile. But it's also just a playable creature on turn 5, then again hits that haste marker. So if you have the Stormbreath Dragons, if you don't mind shelling out the few extra bucks, Stormbreath Dragon is way better than Lightning Runner, though you will miss out on the double strike. If you don't have the money, say for Demigods of Revenge, Rakdos Ragemutt, I play one out of the sideboard when I play this, just because there's some matchups where the lifelink's really important. Side note, burn. So this guy is playable in the deck. It's red and black. We don't love slamming this guy on turn 5, but if we're playing burn and we've made it that long, and they just need to top deck a lightning bolt to kill us, and then we attack for 3 and gain 3, that can put us safely out of the range for them. And then obviously Chromanticore is always brought up when we talk about Soulflayer. He didn't make my list because he's not castable, and Zetalpa is just better as a look at all the keywords we can stick on this, because your creatures that you use your graveyard for are only 4/4 creatures, so giving them all those abilities only gets you so far if they don't have double strike, because you're just going to be getting in for 4, which isn't that much. You really want the double strike. So, and the indestructible is really useful as well. But if you really wanted to just overload on keyword soup, Chromanticore is an option. Lightning Bolt is always considered in every red deck. Gurmag Angler is a good option if you're just looking for a way to slow down the game a little bit. You can just delve this guy out early and have a big fat blocker if you need help surviving that long. And it's just a pretty efficient creature in its own right. And then Smash the Smithereens, it's red, we can play it, it's good against artifacts, so definitely sideboardable. Just some deck notes on this from my testing, and stick around. The last half of this video, and by that I mean probably way more than half of it, is going to be me playing the deck a bit, so you can see it in action. In my experience thus far, we can win through some graveyard hate. Just because most of our creatures are still playable, it does hurt us. Obviously, it's graveyard hate and we depend on graveyard, but it's not like we scoop to a rest in peace. The deck can play fast or grindy. Like, you can slam a turn 3 flying, lifelink, haste, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible, Soulflayer, or you can get him on turn 5 with Demigods of Revenge. And I played a matchup against Control where they just kept getting rid of stuff, and I kept having access to more stuff because we draw so many cards and we see so many threats that they have a hard time answering that. This deck has a good matchup against Burn if you hit like one lifelink creature, which is pretty good since a lot of people, especially online, play Burn. Path to Exile is by far the worst card for this deck to come up against, because unless you go the option where you're running the Stormbreath Dragons, your big scary creatures are going to be really hard for them to kill because they dodge Fatal Push, they dodge Lightning Bolt, they dodge Anger of the Gods, but they don't dodge exile effects. So it's a freaking Path to Exile. If you're playing a deck with white, that's going to hose you a little bit. Then that's just the sad reality of what we're playing. Price-wise, this paper price is a little higher than I like, and that's because the Demigods of Revenge and the Dragonskull Summits aren't super cheap, but I think they make the deck awesome, so this is the price for my recommended list. It's much better online, and half of the price listed there is the Dragonskull Summit, so you can get this deck for like $350 online, even with the Demigods of Revenge, if you cut out the Dragonskull Summits, or if you already have them. I don't have that many online cards myself, but when I bought this deck, it cost me about $1.50 because I already had the Summits and the Nighthawks and the Vault Skirges, just from the fact that they're good cards to have anyway. So it didn't set me back that much. And that's essentially the deck. You put a bunch of crazy stuff in your graveyard, your opponent says, what on earth are you doing? And then turn 2, you get them. Or, I guess, turn 3. Later turns, you get them. So that's it. If you're not at all interested in seeing the deck actually played, leave. Bye. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope that inspired you to try playing this deck, or maybe to think of decks along similar lines and make a way better one, and then show me up in the comments section by posting your better deck list. Whatever. But if you're interested in seeing the game played, stay tuned. Alright, here we are playing some Budget Magic Keyword Soup in Modern. We're going to take the play on this deck, hope we get a decent hand. And it looks like we did. We're going to keep this because we definitely want some of our draw and discard spells in our opening hand, like Faithless Looting and Tormenting Voice. And we already have a good creature to pitch to the graveyard, and we're set on land, so this looks like a pretty ideal hand. So we're just going to go ahead and slam our Faithless Looting, draw 2 cards, and we're going to discard our Lightning Runner and our Demigod of Revenge, and we're going to pass the turn. The Tormenting Voice we're probably going to hit next turn, and we're going to try and keep our Vampire Nighthawk because it's a good turn 3 play, but it'll depend on what they're playing. If they're playing something control-y, which the Flooded Strand indicates they might be, then we might have to reevaluate, but we'll see. We shall see. Yeah, so we're gonna put our Summit down. We want access to black mana as soon as possible because Nighthawk and Soulflayer both use 2 black sources of mana. So we value our swamps more than our mountains. And we have some decent stuff here, so we're just gonna send the turn back. And then turn 3, we have some. This deck is interesting, and it has a lot of lines that you can play. We have a Faithless Looting in our graveyard, and we need to decide if we're going to look at just try and dig through more cards with Faithless Looting next turn, or try and get down with Vampire Nighthawk and start putting a little bit of pressure on. I'm not entirely sure. I'm leaning Faithless Looting in this case, but I'm not sure. They only have 1 land, so it might be the time to try and get a threat on the board. Or we hit a Soulflayer off the draw and we just go to get them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with Vault Skirge, I think. And then we're going to play our Soulflayer and exile our Lightning Runner and Demigod, which should be pretty good. We're going to pay our 2 black, and we're going to exile Demigod, Lightning Runner, Mountain, and Tormenting Voice. We're going to leave our Faithless Looting because it is good for us. And then we're going to get in for 8 with our turn 3 double strike flying haste creature, which I don't expect them to have an answer for on turn 2 with 1 untapped land. So that's pretty decent. I fully expect to eat a path to exile here, but that's not even bad because we're sitting on this Demigod. So if they go that route, we can get an extra land and play our swamp and hit turn 5 land on turn 4. Unless they're smart and save it for our turn and the land will come in tapped. Yeah, okay, so they're smart. So we're going to just go to combat. and see what they have, because they need to have something, because this is 9 damage here. So I'm expecting the Path to Exile. Yep, there it is. So that's fine. We're going to use Path to Exile's ability to pick up a swamp. And then they use Path, so I think we're just going to go with the Vampire Nighthawk. Put more pressure on. And we're not going to need more than 5 land next turn, so I'm actually not going to play a land, just in case we get something like Cathartic Reunion where I need some cards to pitch next turn. So we're just going to send it back to them and see what they got. We're in a really good spot because we have enough presence on board that they have to answer it, but if they answer it, then they're going to get a Demigod of Revenge to the face while they're potentially tapped out. Alright, so I think we go to combat and see what they have. And this is one of the strengths of the deck. They had the Path to Exile for our super awesome big creature, and it doesn't look like it's gonna matter because it got in with haste for enough damage early that it put them super behind. Alright, so there's a Snapcaster Mage. Gonna eat another Path. And that's, you know, that's a thing. It's fine. We're still in a good spot. No one expects the turn 3 4/4 double strike haste flying creature. So then second main, we're just gonna flashback this Faithless Looting, which is great. So we're just gonna pitch these 2 mountains. So we have enough threats that at this point we can slam them. We're gonna slam Demigod first, because if it gets countered, then our Cairn Wanderer will also come in with haste and flying, which I don't have to tell you is pretty decent. So the fact that they're attacking with their Snapcaster Mage, they're either not thinking that I could have a haste creature without flying, so it's not worth leaving him back to block, or they feel like they definitely have something. So here, so I actually want to play the Lightning Runner, which I don't think I've ever said before, but it's our worst creature, so but it's still lethal if they don't have something. So we're gonna give them the chance. We're gonna make them waste something on this Lightning Runner. Come on, Cryptic Command, something. Nope. Alright, so I'm thinking we're gonna have another oh no, Lightning Helix. Lightning Bolt. Okay, well, maybe that wasn't the right move because Demigod would have gotten there, but we don't know that they don't have something else. So that's fine. We're doing fine. And this, so I mentioned this in the deck review a little bit. We're playing control, and we have a lot of stuff. Like we have the Demigod and the Cairn Wanderer to hit them with, so they're down to 2, and they have to answer 2 haste creatures. Our Cairn Wanderer is going to now have double strike, haste, flying, and lifelink, which we do not mind at all. That's pretty good. So we're in a good spot because we have this threat density that's kind of hard for Control to deal with, but it does also feel like they're turning the corner a little bit now, so we're not there yet. This is how every Control matchup goes. Okay, so we're still on our one threat a turn play pattern. I think, I don't know, let's just play a Demigod of Revenge. There's nothing that answers that doesn't answer Cairn Wanderer. So this is going to be good, because if they kill it with something other than a Path to Exile, next turn we're going to get 2. Cryptic Command, yep, okay. So that's fine. We're doing great. Next turn's just another threat. Oh! So I didn't know that that was an actual interaction. I didn't know that's how this game worked. That is unbelievable. Man. Okay, Demigod of Revenge is even better than I thought. Learn something new every day, boys and girls. That was amazing. Oh, what a sweet deck. Take that tier 1 Jeskai Control. What a dumb deck. I mean, it looks like maybe they have a path for it anyway, which would be great. Endless Path to Exiles, yep, okay. Yeah, we're gonna use it. We don't have them yet, but we do have... we have just so many threats coming in. Next turn they get another Demigod. Turn after that they get a Cairn Wanderer. So unless they have a Sphinx's Rev, it's gonna be tough for them. Be tough for them. They do have enough to make their Colonnade is a blocker now. Colonnade. So we have to get through that, but I mean, let's just play Demigod. See what they have, because it's something. Even if it's just a Colonnade. Cryptic. Oh, I hate Control. But you know what? It's honestly fine. We're still getting there. We're still getting there. So after they finally counter this, we can Tormenting Voice and pitch a land, see 2 new cards. They bounce their instant caster. Okay, that's just grand. Love that. Alright, well, there's another threat. just need 1 damage. Okay, so this is nice. I think we're gonna go with the Cairn Wanderer here. But we can actually also play a Soulflayer. So if their plan here is to flashback a Path to Exile, that's not gonna be enough because we have enough threats that they gotta answer to this turn. That Soulflayer was a good draw for us. They gotta have 2 answers. Which they might. They have 4 cards in hand. And I don't think I've ever played against control where they don't draw out of being at 1 life. Okay, well, counter draw, that might have killed them unless they have a Path to Exile in hand, because even if they Snapcaster at this point, they don't have they don't have the mana to then cast the path that they get back, and we have flying and haste, so if they flash in a Snapcaster, you can't block. Or they just path it. Alright, and there we go. We won. Alright, well, long story short, I recorded all 3 games that I played against this control deck, but the video I think was too long for me to upload to YouTube because it failed to upload twice, so I cut it down to the first game. If you're interested in what happened in games 2 and 3, we lost because we didn't have a very good sideboard and we're playing a tier 1 control deck, so I'm not showing you those games because I want to make you think that the deck never lost. I lost the next 2 games in that matchup. But hopefully now you've seen what it looks like. Hopefully you think the deck is pretty sweet. It's certainly silly. It feels strong at times. It's fun. So if you are interested, give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. Otherwise, stay tuned for whatever comes next. Have fun out there, boys and girls. That's what it's all about.